Today I spoke with Helen, and we got into some of the difficulties as a parent when you have a child with a disability. And I know this firsthand because I work in care. I know this firsthand because my nephew is autistic. And we're going to do some more podcasts. We really are. We had a great conversation. Helen is an amazing lady and fantastic to talk to. Please do check the links. Please do get in touch if you're struggling as a parent, if there's information that you don't know. And we really would, on one of these podcasts, this is especially a podcast, we'd love some feedback. What questions do you have? Is there anything we can help you with? Please like, share, subscribe, because it's times like this when we might actually be able to influence and make a slight difference. Thank you as always for listening. Good morning. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was a general good morning.
Just a reference for people, we've actually already been talking for 45 minutes and we decided we should probably record a podcast. And I connected with you because my nephew, Mason, who is autistic, goes swimming at Five Rivers, and my mum also attends, but what sits in the gallery or something. As you can tell, I didn't ask, and that's how you met my mum, and your daughter Maya uses the pool as well. And we should shout out to Salisbury MenCap because they help sponsor and fund the use of that pool. So well done them for actually doing something, unlike many of the other charities. So congratulations to Salisbury MenCap, because actually the feedback that everybody gives about being able to have exclusive access to the pool is amazing, and they're actually funding that and sponsoring it. So if anybody wants to donate, please donate to Salisbury MenCap.
Yeah, absolutely, it's brilliant. Yeah, that is how I met your mum. So they can go swimming, Dolphin Swimming Club, just to give it a little plug. It's actually called South Wilts MenCap, and you can find them on Facebook. Yeah, you can find them on Facebook. I think they've got a web page. And they've taken over Dolphin Swimming Club, which used to be run by a small group of other people. They were getting quite elderly and found it quite a lot of work. Yeah. And then we went into lockdown anyway. So South Wilts MenCap have kind of picked it up. And it's brilliant because the disabled people, there's no age limit. So it's children, young people, adults, anybody that's got a disability can use the pool. And what's also great is that siblings can get in the pool as well, and carers, mums, dads, bigger brothers, whoever's with them.
They do keep trying to get me to go, but I work 3 Saturdays out of every 4, and the odd Saturday that I have off is often booked up. So
yeah.
But if I have a free Saturday, I have promised them I will go. I will attend.
If it's on, because it's not on every week. I think it's
every other week or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every fortnight or something like that.
It's not quite every fortnight. I think it's the 2nd and the 4th Saturday.
Something like that, yeah.
But you can get in touch with South Wilts MenCap anyway. But that's how I met your mum, because your sister gets in the pool with Mason, and me and your mum and some other parents and carers just sit around on a sofa.
We've offloaded the kids into the drowning area, so let's all have a natter and hope they'll be okay at the end.
So, and it's quite good for me because, it's good for my daughter. My daughter's 23, and it's great because it's one little tiny step to kind of trying to cut some of those apron strings, because I know she can get into the pool and she can swim perfectly fine. So she can go into the pool and she can see people that she knows and say hello to them and do a bit of a social thing as well as swimming. And I just think that's really good. And every so often she sort of looks up and looks over like this. And I go, hi. You're right.
But that's what's wonderful about these things, isn't it? Is as somebody that used to work at a day centre, it's independence is an overused word, and
Yeah,
I would describe it more as allowing them to feel comfortable. Because one of the things with people with disabilities is they often feel over supervised,
yeah.
and they're
I
quite
think you're
capable.
right.
Yeah, they're quite capable in the correct environment of making their own decisions about what they want to do and don't want to do. And they're often over supervised, and that, yeah, it can erode their confidence and it can erode their self-esteem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think you're right. I mean, obviously, that's different for everybody, isn't
yeah,
it? Their level of ability. But yeah, certainly my daughter um, has a very independent streak. I mean, she will never be able to live like you or I,
yeah.
you know, completely independently. But she's always had this independent streak. So she's never really missed me, you know.
Because
So
they
her first,
often know their own mind. They know
yeah,
they know who they are and what they would like to do. They
yeah,
often don't
yeah,
always understand that it's not possible, or they don't always have an insight into all the problems that might lie ahead. But they know who
yeah.
they are.
All the consequences
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah,
what they want to do.
yeah. It's just, yeah, something's just not a good idea.
Just but yeah, no, you're right. They do. I think most of them do know their own mind and know what they want to do. And therein lies the frustrations and the problems for them
Yeah.
and for
Well,
everybody else, because very basically a lot of them aren't able to communicate their needs for a
yeah.
start. That can be difficult. And then even if they can, it usually ends up with someone saying, well, you can't
No.
do that.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things that,
There's no budget for that.
oh yeah, yeah.
Have you done a risk assessment?
Honestly, I'm going to share a story about Wiltshire Council. Right, when I worked at
Oh
Wiltshire Council,
no.
yeah, and I don't give a shit
God
about
bless them.
naming and shaming them. They can seriously, pardon my French, they can fuck off. Right? I used to work at a day centre with them, and the on the whole, the day centre staff were great. You know what I mean? But I remember we used to do this walking group, and it is funny. It is funny, but we used to do this walking group, and like they do, the vehicles needed to be upgraded, so they got rid of this big minibus that could carry 12 people, I think. And because I kind of have granddad rights on my license, I could drive a minibus with over 16 people in it. And yeah, it's one of the
I've got
only
the
cool
same on
things.
mine.
Yeah, see, one of the only things that's cool about getting older when you look at younger people, you can't do shit, mate. My license is worth a fortune.
Yeah. I can drive a truck. I
Yeah,
can
that's
drive
it.
a bus.
Yeah,
It's
that's it.
fine.
I can do it all. So, no one actually even checked to see if I'm quite, that I should be allowed to drive. It's just like, yeah, go ahead, David, fill your boots. And so we went from they lost one of the big minibuses, and we went down to a Volkswagen Charan, which actually only seats 5 adults,
Yeah.
including the driver. So you have a driver, which would probably have been me, and you had another support worker. So that only allowed us to carry 3 people, right? I think it was that. It was something like, but it was basically there were 6 in the group, and so 6 seats available, 7 in the group. So I went into the office and say, "Oh, somebody can't come out with us because there's not enough seats." And straight away they went, "That's not your decision to make." I said, "I don't understand. You're not you're not in position to make that those sort of decisions." I said, "I haven't made the decision. Volkswagen did." And they went, "No, I don't." And exact words were, "No, we're telling you, you can't make those decisions." And I went, "I'm not making the fucking decision. Volkswagen did. There's 6 seats, 7 people. What do you want me to do? Put them on the roof rack?" And
Yeah.
this woman, and I'm tempted to name her then, but I won't, was fixated
Tell me
on,
after.
yeah, was fixated on, you can't make that decision. And it even came up in my following supervision a month later. we want to speak to you about you making decisions that you're not allowed to make because you're a support worker. And it's like, I didn't make the decision. It's maths. If there's 6 seats and 7
Yeah.
people, somebody cannot go. And still, yeah, but you're not allowed to make that decision. I didn't. The fucking vehicle
No.
did. And there is that mentality. And it's not just, and Ben, I will also, for reference, I left Wiltshire Council in 2011, so it's probably a lot worse in the last decade. But you run up against these problems, and people kind of, like you and I were joking earlier about the David Walliams, Matt Lucas sketch where the computer says no. You come up against these problems in daily life. By the way, that was a reference to PC curries. Do you know what I mean? We're not happy with you either. So we're coming after all of you today. And
Come back to that.
yeah. But when you have somebody with a disability, the problem becomes tenfold, where there's a lack of understanding.
Absolutely. There's this assumption that even though somebody, and that might be a child, a young person, or an adult, or an elderly person, even though although I will say, I think there's a lot more acceptance and a lot more willing to bend the rules around elderly people. I'm not saying everything's perfect, it's definitely not. But yeah, governments and authorities and local councils do seem to still have these little boxes that you have to fit into.
Yeah.
And if you don't fit into those boxes, you won't get any kind of help or support or funding or respite or whatever, a wheelchair or whatever that might look like, nappies, pads, whatever it is, you won't get it unless you tick the correct boxes. I could give you several examples of that.
This is the purpose. It's time to vent.
The orange box is coming out and I'm going to stand on it. So recently, so when my daughter was 18, she was assessed as an adult. And that's what happens. She's 18 now. She has to be assessed as an adult. Okay, fine, fair enough. So social services assessed her as an adult, and that threw up many, many things. But one of the things was that we got respite.
Okay.
I was like, well, that's great. I mean, it was, put the bunting out, put the flags out, crack the champagne. I've been fighting for some sort of respite for years. And I was told, no, you're not eligible. You're not eligible. You're not eligible. And I was going, but we're eligible. We tick this, we tick that. No, you don't. No, you don't. And suddenly, I didn't even ask for it, this particular assessment, but they came back to me and said, right, we can offer overnight respite for Maya. She needs it. Oh, does she? Well, that's great. But why does she suddenly, because she's had one birthday, one day, what has changed?
What's changed is she now needs a break from her mum.
Yeah.
She's an adult now.
That's what they said. And I said, well, that's great, but she's been needing a break from me for the last God knows how many years. And I know that.
Yeah.
I know that because she's my daughter. And that's what I've been trying to tell you. But anyway, I was great. Like I say, cracked open the champagne, got the bunting out. We got overnight respite. It was wonderful. But because for all those years we didn't fit in their little box, we couldn't get it. And I kept on trying to throw different buzzwords into the conversations, and I kept trying to explain different aspects of our home life. She's sick of me, I'm sick of her. But and sometimes they would come round and I would make sure I didn't have any makeup on because I thought that might help. But it didn't. And you just think, well, how do you actually get that help? Well, one way is to turn 18, evidently. The other thing is that about the same time, they were I believe they're still in the process of rolling out PIP, the personal independence payments,
Yeah.
which is taking over from the old, eventually, DLA, the Disability Living Allowance.
Yeah. Which were personal payments before that.
Yeah.
They love an acronym. Do you know what I mean? How many initials can we get into something?
Oh, I know. Don't you just love it? And so I decided to try and apply for PIP for her because I thought, well, she's over 18. They've given us respite. This might be a good time to do it. So I phoned them up and they said, yes, we're rolling it out in your area, is what they said. So applied for PIP.
Sounds like a BT or cable package, doesn't it? We're rolling out in your area. Would you like to upgrade your internet? Yeah, you can upgrade your child now.
Yeah. But evidently she was, we were suddenly getting this stuff. So a lady from our surgery, she's some kind of a support worker, lovely lady. She came out and she helped me fill out the PIP form. That was excellent. And then that came back and we got the higher level of mobility. So we were eligible for a Motability car.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. Nothing had changed. Maya was still Maya. Her needs had been the same for years. Anyway, because we got the Motability car, I thought, should I apply for a blue badge then?
Yeah.
Because that's a separate thing. So I applied for a blue badge, jumped through all those hoops, got a blue badge. Thought, whoa. About 3 weeks ago, the blue badge is due to run out. Okay, it expires. So I had to reapply for it, and it took me 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours on the computer, trying to find all sorts of documentation, all sorts of proof, all sorts of stuff, basically proof. Right, and that's fair enough, and I kind of understand that, because otherwise they'd be just giving out blue badges to every Tom, Dick and Harry that asked for a blue badge. I appreciate you can't do that. But at the same time, my daughter's 23 now, and she has her main diagnosis is a chromosome deletion. Well, that's not going to change.
No.
It's not going to improve. If anything, she's going to get worse if it goes either way. I've been eligible, or Maya, has been eligible for it once. Nothing is going to change. Nothing will change. Nothing does change. There are tiny milestones, tiny little steps that do improve, yeah. But generally speaking, in terms of blue badges, there's no. So why do I have to do that? And why do we have to do it so often? And why is it such a long process that takes 3.5 hours to do when they've already got the diagnosis?
Details. All the details are on the system. Yeah. Literally, all you should have to do is say, is Maya still alive? Yes.
Yeah. Tick. Yes, she is. And we've still got a car. Or even if we don't. The blue badge, yeah, you're right. It goes with her. So even if we didn't have a vehicle, she could use it in someone else's car. You could take her out.
Because people don't understand is a blue badge isn't registered to a vehicle; it's registered to a person. So literally, all you should need, is Maya's national insurance number, because that dictates that she's still alive.
Yeah.
Right. As long as that national insurance number is still valid, i.e., she's alive, then maybe we could attach. Just for there's no need to have a mobility because it's not registered to the car. So are you still alive? Yeah. Okay. Here's your blue badge. It should just be a process. I mean, you could do it. You could still renew it every 3 years because there's a photograph on it. Or every 5 years. Yeah, fine. But it shouldn't, because this is the point. People say, well, somebody could abuse it. No, because any traffic warden or police officer is entitled to ask to see who the badge belongs to.
Yeah. Right? Exactly.
And I don't want to break people's cynicism here, but there isn't actually that many people abusing the blue badge system
No.
You're only talking about the difference between somebody that has to walk 20 yards more than someone else. And I know it is open to abuse, and I know that there are examples of people that abuse it. But trust me, you can't get a blue badge unless you can prove you have some sort of a disability.
Yeah.
So there may be a family member who occasionally abuses that blue badge system. Right. That doesn't still change the fact that you can stop the person applying for it. That's just somebody abusing the badge that doesn't belong to them.
No.
So it
Yeah.
shouldn't be hard to access a badge if you need one.
Shouldn't be hard. And then, of course, on the subject of reapplying for things along that line, my daughter's got a disability rail card that has to be reapplied for, and a little cinema card.
Yep.
Yeah, that has to be reapplied for. And I've written to Carers UK about this actually and said, look, is there anything that could be done about this? Because I can't be the only person, well, I know I'm not the only person who gets frustrated, because like you say, there's surely, when you first apply for them, you have to give, proof of diagnosis, proof of this, proof of that, and that's fine. But once you've given all that evidence and all of that proof and documentation, that is surely sitting somewhere. Somebody has seen it and approved it and ticked it off and said yes, a bit like a passport. When you get your first passport, that's quite hard. But then all you do is renew it. And like you said, with the photos, you might have to give a more up-to-date photo, right? We all change. But there must be a way of just maybe going to a third-party website and saying, oh, yeah, this is Maya. She needs a new cinema card. She needs a new blue badge. She needs a new rail card. There must be a way of linking them up somehow, like I say, maybe with a third party, where we can just go there, disabled people can go there and go, yeah, I need a new one then.
It's the same,
not 3.5 hours.
Well, I know this because my sister did it the other day. She had to renew her driving license and she did it online. I think it cost £15 and took her about 30 minutes. Right. But nobody's assessed to see if my sister can drive or not.
No.
My driving license is up for renewal in 2 years' time. But no one's going to make me sit in the car and see if I can still drive.
No.
And there's plenty of people that tell you I can't. And the thing is, like you say, like with Maya, like with Mason's autism, right? Where Mason sits on the spectrum, he's not going to turn 18, 21, 31, whatever, and suddenly be independent. He's never going to have a high level of independence. It's just not. Right? So he's always going to be, I have to apologise now because I nearly said freeloading of my sister, right? But I mean that lovingly as an uncle who loves his nephew dearly. But, the family joke is he's always going to require some form of support.
Yeah.
That's never going to change, ever. No. So at what point should he have to stop filling in forms?
I know.
It's not like, I think sometimes the problem with disability is it's tied into things like unemployment.
Yeah.
It's just like, look, Mason is most likely, he's never demonstrated that he is going to be able to have a job.
No.
He's autistic. He's quite high on the spectrum. He can communicate, but he can only communicate with what he's interested in. And trust me, it won't be a job. That's never going to change. No. And the house could be on fire. Mason's not going to get up and leave the house. We know this because when the smoke alarms go off, he doesn't even get up and move. And if he does move, it'll only be to put headphones on because the sound of the beeping's annoying him. He doesn't like noise. So it's not, danger, there's a fire. Maybe the room full of smoke is an issue. No, Mason's like, where's my handheld computer thing?
That's interestingly about. Yeah. I've said very recently about fire in particular, because Maya, if you ask her in the right way,
yes,
If you ask her in the right way, she will answer by saying that, if there's emergency, what do you do? But if you word that slightly differently, she will answer by saying, oh, I pick up the phone and dial 999.
She knows what to recite.
Now, when she says that to a social worker or a teacher, some teachers are really switched on, or some sort of professional, they automatically think, okay, so in an emergency, Maya knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger picture here, because Maya, one, she knows what to recite, exactly that. The other thing is that Maya doesn't actually know how to use a phone, which is really interesting.
And the other thing as well, sorry, I don't mean to, I bet you Maya doesn't know how to identify what an emergency is.
Exactly.
No. And this is what people don't get.
Maya doesn't have any road sense.
No.
Traffic.
Like you say, if you say, Maya, if there's an emergency, what do you do? She will say, I pick up the phone, I dial 999, speak to. But like you said, she doesn't know how to use the phone.
Doesn't know how to use the phone.
If you ask her for the definition, go on.
I was going to say, she can pick up the phone and she can call Grandma, my mum.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but she can pick up the phone, the landline, and she can dial the number off the top of her head. And she sits there, and as soon as even the answer phone cuts in, she goes, "Hi, Grandma." Yeah. And then I'm sitting there going, "Hang on a minute, it's the answer phone," or it might be Grandma. But yeah, she can't use a mobile phone, which is interesting. She's clueless.
Yeah.
And anybody else, if I ask her to dial a number on the landline, she can't. And it's that transference of skills.
It is, yeah.
I think. But yeah, danger. She's got no sense of danger. She if someone walked up to her in a big trench coat and said to her, would she like to see puppies and baby horses, she'd be straight there, especially if they had pizza as well. To
be fair, if you're handing in pizza, you might tag me as well. Puppies and whole baby horses, you've got my interest, but if you're chucking in pizza, I'm in.
Pizza as well.
Yeah, if you chuck in pizza, you've got me. So if anyone's trying to kidnap a middle-aged 47-year-old white man, you just need puppies, ponies, and pizza.
Puppies, ponies, and pizza. All the P. There's another acronym there.
See, they just roll, don't they? Yeah. Ironic personal safety equipment. Do you know what I mean? Personal protection or something? Yeah. But she's
got no road sense. She can't cross a road on her own, and that's been used against me as well, because she did some travel training when she was at school, at Exeter House School. Now, this is no reflection on them at all, not in the least. But she did some travel training. And then I had a social worker say to me that Maya could walk somewhere in town. And I said, well, what? No, she can't walk anywhere. She's got no sense of danger. She can't cross a road on her own. And the social worker said to me, I thought she'd done travel training. And I said, well, yeah, but have you spoken to the school about that and how it went? And what the outcomes were? Because everyone's all about outcomes. It didn't go well at all.
So, this is the point, though, isn't it? Social services will say, going back to your box and it's being ticked, but she's done travel training at school. Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the box that says she be allowed to travel independently? Because that box doesn't exist.
Listen, can I just stop you there? Can we just pause for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Please. Because my Tesco delivery is just arrived. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
2 minutes. I'll literally dump it on the floor and I'll come running back. There's no frozen.
The only thing that what I'll decide is whether I want to edit this out or not.
2 minutes, folks.
No.
I'll be right back after this ad.
Yeah. So after that short ad break, we are
Yeah.
back. Tesco's have delivered. Well done. So yeah, because there is this frustration, isn't there, around the council, and it's not just Wiltshire Council; it's all of them. There never seems, and I
No.
know this from my
All of them.
sister's experience. One of the things that has actually messed her up a few times is she'll find out she's not entitled, that there's a benefit that she's entitled to because Mason is autistic. And then when she applies for that benefit, they take something off her after telling her she's supposed to be applying for it. And you just like,
Yeah.
but now I've lost that. Well, yeah, you can't have that because you're entitled to this.
Because yeah.
And she ends up, and people don't understand. For people that don't quite get it, what happens is it often, once you can apply for something you've been told you can apply, it might be about 3 to 6 months before you get the money.
Yeah. And
Right?
it won't be backdated either.
No, it won't be backdated, but they will immediately stop the money that you were receiving. There's
Yeah.
no transition. And
No.
sometimes, if they've decided you shouldn't have had it, they'll want it back.
Yeah.
And you're left with like, well, you've just taken £100 a week off me because you
Yeah.
said I can have £90 a week from here. So I'm £10 down a week anyway. And now you're saying I've got to pay back that £100 a week for the last 12 weeks or something. And I'm not going to get the £90 a week, which you're not going to backdate until somebody gets off their ass and ticks the box. And it will then eventually go into my bank account. Oh, and you will then also want to see my last 3 months' pay slips again
Oh
and
yeah.
bank statements. Every
Oh
time you change something, I have to give you my bank statements, my pay slips. Even though I'm still working at the same place, still doing the same job, you want it all over again because you changed something.
yeah.
And it's, and like literally, I don't know how to fix that part of the system because, and having, still work in care and haven't worked in care for a long time, people just don't give a shit.
No. No. No, they don't. And it's just so frustrating. Maya is now, she's like I said earlier, she's 23. So she's now on universal credit. But a similar problem that we had a few years ago when she was 20, we had to stop because children's benefits have to stop at some point,
Yeah.
and they have to then obviously be transferred to adult benefits. But it's so ridiculous because they have to apply for those benefits in their own right. And you kind of think, well, okay, on the one hand, I can see that because Maya is her own person and she needs that money herself. But on the other hand, how is Maya supposed to apply for that? Well, so I apply for that on her behalf, but then universal credit, it becomes really tricky. So, for example, at the time, Maya was in full-time education at a specialist college, and but they were stopping the children's benefits. So I had to put in an application for Maya for universal credit, but technically she had no right to apply for universal credit, because if you go, I don't know if this has changed, but at the time, so this was 3 years ago, if you looked at the universal credit website and all of the eligibility, she didn't tick the boxes at all, because if you're in full-time education, you can't apply for universal credit. Right, okay, you can't apply for universal credit, but so what do you apply for? Well, there's nothing. You fall off the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
So me and my friend, because her son was in the same position at about the same time, we colluded. We spoke to John Glenn about it, our local MP. We've spoken to him about many things over the years.
Do you find him useful or helpful?
He can be, yes. Yes. Yeah. But there's also, I think there are some situations where, however sympathetic he is, there is actually nothing he can do, I think. My politics is not conservative, but I do have, personally, I've got a lot of time for John Glenn because he's always got time. He always makes time to see people. That's my experience anyway. And he always listens. And I'll tell you now, if he sees me and Maya out and about anywhere, Maya's straight there. Hi, John. And do you know what he does? He doesn't flinch. He smiles, he beams, he puts out his hand to shake her hand and he says, hello, Maya.
You know, I'm not aligned to any political party. I've never been aligned to any political party. And I always say to people, don't listen to a party. What's your local MP like? Vote for your MP, not the party.
Not the party, yeah.
And I honestly do heartfeltly believe that if people focused more on their local MP, they would have better accountability.
Yes.
If you stopped aligning yourself, because like you say, John Glenn is a Conservative MP. Anybody who knows anything about Conservatives, it's one of the safest seats in the country, right? And and the thing is, like you say, if your MP is accessible and your MP knows who your daughter is, there's not much more you can ask.
No.
And if everybody took that approach to their politics and stopped voting for like parties just because I always vote Conservative, I always vote Labour, or the one that I hear is I would never vote Conservative or I'd never vote Labour. How about voting for an MP that does a good job?
Yeah.
Don't worry about the tie, the colour of his tie or her tie. Just do they do a good job? If the answer is yes, put it all aside and vote for them and communicate with them.
Yeah, exactly. Because if they don't know what the problems are, then they've got no chance of fixing anything if they don't know what's broken in the first
Well,
place.
one of the things
Um,
that I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and we're going a bit off track, but I'll just finish with that, is, and I know it's a very polarizing subject, but Brexit. Brexit should have taught the public one thing: MPs are accountable.
yeah,
Because whether people like it or not, a majority voted to leave. And when the MPs ignored it, and Boris Johnson said, I will deliver Brexit, he got the largest Conservative win in years, because it was no longer first past the post, it was done by constituencies. And people
yeah,
don't realise Labour safe seats, like the one that Tony Blair used to be in, went Conservative, turned blue for the first time in their history. But somehow, and the reason that should stick in people's heads is because it's the first time that the public demonstrated the power they had over politicians, and they've relinquished it all again.
yeah.
It, the best way to control politicians and the government is to get rid of them when you don't like them, and you can only do that if you vote for the MP and not the party.
That's true.
And
That is true.
that's my little rant over. But Brexit was, whether like people agree or don't agree, in terms of constituencies, I think it was 70% voted to leave. And when
Yeah,
that was ignored by the MPs and the election came along, Boris won by a landslide. Only for that reason. Nobody voted for Conservatives. They just
no,
voted for the guy that was going to give them the way they
that
voted.
they
It had
wanted. Yeah,
Yeah, it had nothing to do with Boris Johnson, had nothing to do with the Conservatives. It was a Brexit vote. And you ignored us, and now we're going to do it anyway. And this is what you've ended up with, because politicians ignored the voters. And now voters are ignoring the power they actually hold.
yeah,
Yeah. And it
yeah.
is, and it's a shame, because there are
Interesting.
many things that the country does well, and there's many things we could do better. And one of them is stop fucking tick boxing. Because going back to something you and I were talking about earlier, there is, and people who, families who have children that are disabled, people that work in the disability sector will know there is a vast majority, and it is a majority, if they have a disability, it will be for life. It's
Yeah,
not going to change. They're
no,
not suddenly going to wake up tomorrow like some scene out of Shrek because they've taken a magic potion and changed into a completely different person. It's not going to happen. And if they need supported living, it's going to happen. You will know that by the time they're 15 or 16, whether they're going to need continued support. Right? And
yeah,
with a lot of them, like you and I know this very well, and we cannot stress to people enough, the line between those that will become fully independent is thin, really thin. It's a tiny, tiny majority, a minority, sorry. So if your child, and to be perfectly honest, if you get an assessment that says your child needs to go to a specialist school and specialist college, they are never going to, it's unlikely they'll ever become fully independent.
yeah.
And I remember when my sister was trying to get Mason assessed, it was massively difficult. They resisted giving him the assessment because they literally didn't want to admit he was autistic.
No,
And
the thing is the money, isn't it?
it,
Because the minute he's got an autistic diagnosis, then particularly with education, he has then got a budget,
yeah,
and that budget, there are, I believe I'm right in saying, within education there are five grades
yes,
of that budget.
it does.
Um, but
And
yeah, it's a nightmare. And also, if Mason had been able to go to a mainstream school, is he at a mainstream school?
now he was mainstream all through primary school, all through junior school. He was
Oh,
mainstream,
brilliant!
even though he'd been assessed.
Yeah,
And it was frustrating at times because some teachers were brilliant. Some teachers would be like, "Well, Mason's a problem." No, he's fucking autistic. You know,
yeah,
you know. To be fair, most of the kids were amazing, and parents
yeah,
were so brilliant. some of the parents, the way they helped Mason, the way they were understanding was amazing.
Yeah,
Some of the teachers were shit,
yeah,
just
yeah. And that,
appallingly bad.
see, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? The thing is that I do know that what often happens when children are able to go to a mainstream
Yeah,
school, but they do have a recognised disability, so they've got an EHCP, there's then a budget that goes with that.
yeah.
But what happens is that budget, I don't know if many people realise this, but that money is not ring fenced.
No, this
It's
is,
not ring fenced. So that money just goes to the school, and it's up to the school how they spend that money.
yeah. I
And
don't think
so,
Mason got anything.
although it might say on your EHC, on the child's EHCP, which is like the old statement, but it's now an EHCP. Um, it might say, oh, this child needs 1-to-1, 20 hours a week,
Yeah,
needs speech therapy 2 hours a week. That child, it's not unusual for that child to not have any of that support, because actually the head teacher has decided that the budget, that money is better spent on, I don't know, going towards the budget for the new classroom or something
yeah.
like that. And it's completely acceptable for them to do that, which is absolutely shocking.
It's crazy, and I know for a fact that Mason never got any support like that. But he's now at a specialist school in Melksham. Uh,
Okay.
he commutes there every day with a taxi, and yeah, so he's in secondary school, and but even that is problematic,
Yeah.
because I think one of the things that's really difficult for everybody is the people that are supposed to know what you're entitled to won't tell you, and
It's
they
because they
do.
don't know.
I sometimes think they do know and just don't want, unless you ask the right questions. And and that's what I mean. It's deceitful.
Or if
It's
you ask the right person.
yeah,
Sometimes I've asked people a question and they've said, oh, no, 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 you can't do that. But then, so maybe that might be a social worker.
yeah,
And then social worker might change. And so a few months later, I might ask another social worker the same question. And they'll go, oh, yeah, how much do you want? You're like,
this is it. This is it. The standard of
so,
training and knowledge, and as well, people don't understand how frustrating it is, and we all experience this, and I still experience this in care when like social workers, key workers, whoever it is, they change so frequently
yeah,
that you get somebody turning up who just, and it's not their fault. They have no idea
yeah,
who your daughter is. They have no idea who Maya is.
yeah,
And then they come at you with all these questions about why do you do this? Why is it like that? Why isn't she doing this? And you're just like, okay, do you realize you're like the third person I've spoken to about this in the last 18 months? And you've
yeah,
all, like, do you not read the records? Do you not read, you're supposed to have a person centered bio. You're supposed to have like the likes, the dislikes. Who is this person? What does this person do? What is this person? They're normally like coloured placards, laminated.
yeah,
You lot they go crazy for them,
yeah,
but they seem to disappear into a vacuum every time somebody leaves.
yeah.
And the amount of person-centered meetings I've turned up to over the years, and they do all of these things. Who's this person? What's this? I don't know why I'm waving my arms. Half the people that listen to this are on audio, but um, and it all, like you say, it all sounds great, but it's never passed on.
No,
And they're so worried that everybody's trying to abuse everyone that they forget that no, like 99.9% of their families love them to bits, are proud of them.
yeah,
Just like there's nothing they won't do for them.
yeah,
Well, we're worried that that there's going to be financial abuse. She hasn't had her benefits for 3 months because you keep fucking up the paperwork. The
Yeah,
family are the one paying for them. Where's to
yeah,
find out the money they won't get back either?
exactly. It's crazy. It's so crazy. The whole system is the wrong way round. And I mean, what we should be doing really is looking at these children and adults and saying, okay, what is going on in your life at the moment? What is working? What isn't? What would you like to do about that?
Yeah.
Because if you think about your life, my life, I mean, I know things have changed, systems and processes and procedures, and,
Yeah.
you know, the
We've learnt a
official
few
stuff.
life lessons along the way, changed
But
our outlook.
yeah, but you know what I mean? When you were a child
Yeah.
and you went to school, nobody assessed you to see where you needed to go to school. My theory has always been, and I was very ignorant and naive when I had my daughter, when I had Maya. I just assumed that she was going to go to the playgroup in the village where we lived at the time, which was where her older brother went to and where our neighbours went, who she saw and she was familiar with them. Um, and everybody in the street went there, and then they went to the local village school. And I just thought it would be the same for Maya, but obviously she would need a lot more support. And I was really shocked. I was really shocked when a learning disabilities nurse said to me when Maya was 2 that we would have to drive, like, I don't know, 6 miles down the road. There was a really good play group and they had a lot of experience of special needs and it would be perfect for Maya. And I was like, but there's a play group in the village and everybody we know goes there. And my husband at the time, we only had one car, and my husband at the time started work at like 7 in the morning. So I was, how are we going to get her there? This is mad. Why can't? And the learning disabilities nurse just said to me, Helen, it doesn't work like that. She's going to have to go to a special school as well. Oh, no way. I mean, not because I had a problem with special schools. I used to live close to a special school and they're brilliant. But because our local school was really close by, I just assumed that she would get the support she would need in the school. And I was so shocked when I was told that. I mean, I was more shocked at that than I was when I was told that, you know, it became apparent that Maya was somehow different and somehow had some kind of disabilities, but we're going to have to do tests and figure out and get a diagnosis. That was fine. I was just like, right, do whatever. What do you want
Yeah.
from me? But being told that she couldn't go to the local playgroup in the local primary school meant that instantly what happens is these people normally more and more when they're children are taken out of the local community, then that's
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
And then you're excluded. And as a mum, I was outside of the school gate
There's an
community
irony to that because
because it's just crazy. And yet I think I know where you're going.
well, it's because they take
It's
like you
this
said they 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 they
passivity.
exclude them from mainstream primary schools and like playgroups, and then try and teach inclusiveness and
I know.
understanding of disabilities. Well, it's like you realise there's 4 people in the village with disabled kids whose
Yeah.
brothers and sisters come to the school, and these children all meet them when they play outside of school and outside the playground. And actually, if you like, I appreciate that there is a difficulty in some aspects of funding and understanding because disabilities can be complex. And my sister had the opposite problem with Mason. They didn't want to assess him. So he didn't get any help until he was about 8 years old.
Oh.
right? And anybody that knows Mason knows he's autistic or knows he has a disability. It's just,
Oh,
um, and then
I know what you mean though. Sometimes it's just so obvious. It's in
well,
your face.
well,
There's
because
no grey
if you see him,
areas.
yeah, if you see him standing there, like side, okay, he doesn't stand out as being having a disability. You try to communicate with Mason.
Yeah.
It's quite clear that he has a disability. And also, actually, there are sometimes some signs because if he's going somewhere, he's noise sensitive and he normally wears Sonic the Hedgehog type headphones. And it's quite clear they're not headphones. So you can sort of sometimes see, and he often wears a placard so that so if because if somebody tries to talk to him, you just hold it up and put it in your face. And it basically says something like, "My name's Mason, I'm autistic."
Oh, bless
you know,
him.
yeah, because but like you say, he knows how to do that.
Yeah.
What he doesn't know is how to tell you he's autistic. And
Yeah.
unless you know how to ask him a question, unless you know how to communicate with him,
Yeah.
you're not going to get any answers from him that are helpful. And you can't
Yeah.
teach somebody how to speak to an autistic person because the next autistic person will need a different way to communicate with them.
Exactly. And we're back to those little boxes, aren't we? And trying to tick
Yeah.
boxes and fit people in boxes. And no matter how much the authorities try and fit us in
While teaching
boxes,
them at school, they're all individuals and no one's the
I
same.
know
Oh, by the way, you're in a box. So, I mean, I think obviously
it's crazy.
we need to round this up as well. I would What would you say to people who are listening to this and are struggling? Like because they have a young child. Where would you tell them to start?
Parents, talk to other parents, reach out to other parents. There's many, many, many groups. Whatever you think your child may have as a diagnosis, even if it's not a diagnosis, if you think it might be something similar, look it up on Facebook, find a group on Instagram, find a group on Twitter, find a website with a group. Carers UK are great as well. They have a lot of forums and YouTube. They've got a YouTube channel with some helpful videos on there as well. But I would say talk to other parents, reach out to other parents and chat to other parents, because the biggest nuggets of knowledge that I've been given have been handed down to me from other parents who have already trodden the path, if you like. They've already gone on their journey.
Yeah, and that's the truth, though, isn't it?
But it's true. They're the people that have really helped me so much. And don't believe just because a professional tells you something, yes, make a mental note of it and bear it in mind, but it might not actually even be true.
Yeah, don't believe them.
Unfortunately, it might be right and it might be true, but it might not. So you must be open-minded. You must be open-minded to ask the same question 1,000,001 times, and to the point that you're sick of your own voice, but ask it, because somebody may well give you a completely different answer. And then once you try what they've said, suddenly loads of doors open. So talk to other parents and be open-minded, and don't just take someone's word for it either. You're going to have to be strong. Oh, I'm getting all emotional now.
No, but
It's not going to be easy, which
but
is
this is
another
why it's
reason to shout.
but this is it. This is why it's important to have these discussions because it's not easy, and the system could be a lot better. And it actually, do you know what? Just for a starting point, all they would actually need, and I'm surprised that more organisations don't try and do this, but I guess it's not their responsibility. A great place to start would just be to have a centralised office in the county somewhere where if your child has, but do you know what I mean? Just like we will tell you what you can have and what you're entitled to, and everybody in that
Yeah,
office.
but nobody knows.
But that's what I'm saying is there,
And
but
even if they do, like
they
you said earlier, they don't want to tell you,
no,
because
and
then
that's
they're scared that their budget's going to be gone in 5 minutes because everyone's going to want it.
but that's what I'm saying is what we really need in the sense of how we rejig or how we change the system is we need some sort of setup where there is a centralized office, right? Where if you ring into that office and you tell them your child and you tell them the assessment or whatever, they will say, right, from this age to this age, this is what they're entitled to. What are your earnings? What's the background? This is what you're entitled to. Okay. And then these are the forms you need to fill in.
Yeah.
And because one of the things, like you say, because it's so hard and so stressful, one of the reasons for that is because they make you feel on your own and you make you feel
Yes.
isolated and you don't
Yeah.
realize and you constantly have to fight for support you're actually entitled to have.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing I think most people eventually find so infuriating is you're entitled to it.
Yeah. And a
And
lot of families just give up.
exactly, they give up because it's okay. You can have this, but by the way, you can only apply for this form under the full moon and the Capricorn sun rising. If the wind's blowing from the east, you've got a 200-word password and you fill it incorrectly the very first time with
Yeah.
uppercase, explanation marks, and numbers. And then, as long as that was completed between 9:30 and 4:30 on the 4th of March, you can have it. If you miss any of that, you can fuck off.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Forget it.
Oh,
You're
and
right.
yeah, and by the way, if you do fill all of that in and you do get accepted, we're not backdating it. And for crying out loud,
No.
don't change jobs. Don't, if the
Don't
government
change jobs.
change the system and we call it something else, you're going to have to reapply again.
Don't change your mobile number either, because that'll fuck
Right, and from that
everything up.
point, just hold your breath until your child is 21. Don't move, don't pee, don't eat, don't smile, don't do anything.
Listen, I would be interested in any feedback on how any of the systems could be improved on a serious note, because I'm involved with a House of Lords committee, a special committee that's been set up to try and improve social services. So any constructive feedback, I would be really interested in, because I can then feed it back into them.
Yeah.
But personally, I think the whole thing needs to be abolished and just rebuilt from the bottom up, not from the top down.
No, it definitely needs to be completely rebuilt. And one of the things that governments have to stop doing is changing the payment system.
Yeah,
There should it should be separated from. I'm just going to briefly go into this. I had a friend of mine who sadly passed away this year, and he was one of my oldest and closest friends. But he some years ago was sectioned, and eventually, basically, was like he's never going to work again. Okay, because of his mental health. And periodically, his doctor would just write a letter. This is it. And eventually, the benefits system just left him alone because he was never returning to work. He never had. There was just no way he was ever going to do that. All right. And we have to have something that's much more simple, where it's like, look, if your child has an assessment, look, we have to start with an assessment. There's no way around that. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But at that point, you should almost be given a passport. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like because you get a passport, you get a driving license. I mean, Jesus Christ, we nearly had a COVID passport. We've all got COVID passes, this pass, vaccination passes. So we need something like that for people with disabilities, so their families can just say, "Here you go. Here's the membership card." And I don't mean
yeah.
it to sound that crude, and I do apologise if you're easily offensive and you're that stupid, but it's right? But you do need some form of something that identifies this person as they have a disability and they need an assessment. And from that point, you should then be separated from the benefit system.
Yeah,
So you don't have to keep reapplying. It should be an
yeah,
automated system, and look, and I'm sorry, but you end up having to grade these things like it's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, right? But at that point that it happens, you will always get that.
Yeah.
And the only reassessment should happen around 18 or 21, because you're switching from specialist schools to adulthood. And some
Yeah.
people can, with support, have jobs. Some people can have minor roles in full-time work. It does vary, and it varies with the type of work and the type of supervision that's available, and the complexity of the job. You know, um, but at that point, you can just roll the system.
Yeah.
It's like, right, if you're, I don't know, and I wish I had, this is that thing I was telling you about. I don't mean it to sound so clumsy, and I wish there was a nicer way to articulate it, but you do need something that just is a grading system, if you like, so that
Yeah.
once you've been, you're allocated, assigned, whatever. Like I said, it sounds very horrible when you say it like that, but at that point you should then be going, right, here's your bundle, here's what you're entitled to, and it shouldn't then be questioned.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to fight it. It shouldn't be like pulling out toenails.
No.
Just like, no, this is what you, and everybody should understand that. Instead, weirdly, it's one of the few times you need to stop treating people like individuals, and you need to actually give somebody a package.
Yeah.
Like, right, this is everything you're going to need. And
Yeah.
and you can have flexibility. It doesn't have to be set in stone, but that's where individual assessments should be done. But to
Yeah.
start with, it's right, here's your package. We're gonna, you've got this for 6 months, then we're gonna come along and see how you are. I don't know. There's a better way than that, but at least it's somewhere to
It's a
start.
really good idea. I think it's a
Careful.
really good idea. I do. I because the thing is as well is that there's so many different agencies, There's so many different people. I mean, some families are dealing with, well, I was going to say NHS, but there again, within all the different
Yeah,
people that a family might be visiting within the NHS, there's the GP over there, there's someone at the hospital, there's someone at a separate clinic over here, there's someone who wants an assessment, but they can only do it at school on a Wednesday morning. And then there's somebody who is, I had to take my daughter to Swindon for a
yeah,
speech and therapy assessment. And then I was told by that speech and language therapist that she said she tried to be gentle about it, but she said, I can only give you 2 or 3 appointments at most because there's only 2 of us working the entire area of Wiltshire at the moment. And
yeah,
I was like, what?
yeah.
You're
Yeah, there is a
joking.
there is a shortage of speech and language therapists, because I used to use them for one of my clients privately. We'd have to,
But
we'd pay.
it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And then you might have mental health
Yeah,
um, issues, in which case you've got another whole bundle of people that are involved, and they might be all over the place. So you've got all these different agencies, and that's without even thinking about money and benefits. And some of the money will come from Wiltshire Council. It won't come from the Department of Work and
yeah, I
Pensions.
know.
And then some of the money comes from HMRC. It doesn't come from Wiltshire Council or the DWP. And it's like, what? And and then some carers also have a job
Yeah.
on top of,
Yeah,
my
it's
hat goes off to them, because in the last 18 months I've taken on a job and I've had to give it up because of my caring role and the toll it was taking on my health and my mental health, and it's just ridiculous. And yeah,
that's the
great.
point, though, isn't it? Ultimately, what this comes down to is we're trying to, like, please understand, stop treating the families and their children like inanimate objects,
Yeah,
because when they're sitting at home, they're stressing, they're worried, and they're not just worried about them today, they're worried about who looks after them when I'm gone, because I don't trust the
exactly.
system now. because
No,
the system is getting it wrong. And there's no one in the system looking after me now, and there's no one looking after in the system looking after my child now. Everything that we've had to fight for, even though we're told we're entitled to it, but you don't tell us what we're entitled to. So
no,
I know you're not going to do anything to protect my child. And who's going to look after that when I'm not there to do it? And like I said,
that's a
it's
whole nother podcast, I think.
then that's where we're going to finish today.